Semifinal number 2 underway at the World Cup as Argentina takes on England in Atlanta. Argentina looking to make it to back-to-back finals, while for England, they're looking to make it to their first World Cup final since 1966. That year, they did win the tournament as hosts. The winner from today going to face Spain on Sunday, while the loser will play France on Saturday. We did have big news out of Detroit today. Red Wings GM Steve Yzerman stepping down from his current role and will now become just a senior advisor to team CEO Chris Ilitch. Yzerman has been the GM in Detroit since 2019, but in that time has been unable to lead them back to the playoffs. Staying with the NHL, we do have some schedule nuggets for the upcoming season. The full schedule is going to be released tomorrow. But for the Sabres, we do know where they will open up the season. It'll be at Columbus on Thursday, October 1st. And then the home opener will be Saturday, October 3rd against the Chicago Blackhawks. And for more on this, we do have a piece up at our website, WGR550.com. And do stay tuned. Paul Hamilton will join the show at 3:30. Then in baseball, the All-Star break is now in the rear-view mirror. Games are technically going to get back underway tomorrow, though we'll only have just one. Phillies hosting the Mets. The league, though, at large will get back underway on Friday, including the Bisons, who will be at Syracuse for a 3-game series. That's Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody?
Monday, Tuesday, hump day is halfway. It's Mike Schopp.
Mike. What day is it, Mike?
And the Bulldog.
Hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on. I know you can hear me.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-hoo!
On WGR.
Hump day!
Sports Radio 550.
Well, I've been paying attention to it pretty much all day and noticing it and texting and tweeting. Well, not tweeting. Yes, I guess I did tweet about it once. The smoke-filled orangey skies above Western New York. And yet, I walked in here. I used to be able to walk in here at 1:30. Now it's got to be like 2:56, no earlier, because the room is occupied, and I fell for it. Like, why aren't the lights on? Why aren't the blinds open? But it turns out everything was on and open. It's just like dark outside, kinda. So we'll get past it. I'm excited about today. I wish I were more excited about England and Argentina, but alas, France took me out of that pool, and now it's just like depressing. I know that's lame, right? I like the World Cup. I liked it before I could bet on it. I liked it before survivor pools and, oh, a man's down. What do you know? Just looked up and saw somebody rolling around. See, what was that? Was that just bitterness from losing on France yesterday? Oh, of all the teams to lose on, the favorite. But that's life. So, yeah, I mean, I thought I was in good shape in this pool and needed for that to work out, England to win, and I would have been, super distracted like I was yesterday to a point, but Spain got up when I was talking to Sneaky Joe in the first segment, and really from then on, it was never that interesting. But anyway, that's how that goes. Winner today goes to the final on Sunday in New York, and I guess there's some thought that our skies today will be theirs this weekend. And that could be a problem. I mean, it seems like a ways off, 4 days off, but it's what I read. So maybe that's something to think about. I'll talk to Paul Hamilton today. The Sabres have announced their opening night. It's a Saturday this year, October 3rd against Chicago, Bowen Byram's Chicago Blackhawks. And before that, they'll open their season on the 1st against Columbus. We'll talk about some other Sabres stuff as well with Paul. I'll bring on a guest who you've not met yet, Ryan Paganetti, at 4 o'clock. I heard Ryan on a podcast with Scott Barrett of Fantasy Points talking about his career. He's been an analytics director or director type in a few organizations, and I just woke up one morning to this podcast where he and Scott were talking about how Ryan worked for the Eagles when they won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles and the Philly special and all this. Like, who is this guy? And so at the moment, he's not with a team or in the league office, but he's building a social media presence and seems really impressive. So, if you may know, that's a big area with me, and I kind of want to know some origin story stuff and maybe where we're at, what place and time we're at here. What is that, like almost a decade ago, Philadelphia, and they didn't invent a lot of that stuff. They were a team famous for trusting it, and they were rewarded. So anyway, Ryan will join me in about an hour, and it's Pick 10 day, the fourth and final one of these for our season in golf, where we rotate, taking turns, picking 10 players, one of whom the deal is you need to win the upcoming major championship. This week it's the Open Championship. This week it's my turn, and Brian will be on, and I think also Bulldog will call in, and that'll be at 5:30 for the golf picks. I'm mostly done. I know Chris last time was like done. He had picked that Koepka. I'm 54. That Koepka like weeks in advance. That time, actually, that was the Open, and it was Koepka, I think, who had some injury. And we left it so that if he were hurt and didn't tee off in the morning, that Bulldog could replace him with someone else. And I just jokingly threw out the name Padraig Harrington. Well, Padraig Harrington won the Senior Open, the U.S. Senior Open, like a week or two ago. I think he won the year before also. It sounds like he's maybe killing it on the Senior Tour. He has won the Open Championship at this golf course, Birkdale, which is the second most frequent host of this tournament. And I'm a little bit keen to it, Harrington. Like, could he win? He probably won't, but it's a fun long shot idea, and I like my long shots. So some hockey, some golf, some football, and whatever else comes up through the day. Bet Online today sent out quarterback stats, prop bets. And here are the numbers on Josh Allen. And I'll leave the one that I think I would, I'm stubborn. The one I think that I would play first for last. So keep in mind with these, when they put out season-long prop bets, that it pretty much, you want to remember that not everybody's going to play 17 games. In fact, Allen, who hasn't missed a start in years, doesn't really even play 17 games because he plays one play the last 2 years in the last one. But, injuries, and there's probably some threshold. I don't know. There's probably some threshold that players need to clear for the bets to be valid. But the numbers are going to be lower than if you add up single game projections or like other years, just because if Allen were to miss a month or something, that could decide the bet. So here are the numbers on him. Passing yards, 3,600 and a half. So that would be his lowest total in 7 years. Again, keep in mind that injury point. And it's not by much. Last year was 36.68. 2024 was 37.31. So it's within 100 to 150 yards, passing yards from the last 2 years, this number. Are you thinking, if you are a gambler and want to play some of these, of course you can. Are you thinking, just whether you are or not, that Allen is in position for a bigger passing year? That has been my vibe here for a while. And that comes from different conversations that I've had and that we've had with different analysts and ADP chasing on Tuesday nights, last night, I talked to Matt Collard today on his Purple Insider podcast. The point Warren Sharp made on this show a couple of weeks ago. Look, the Bills might have to chase more because of their schedule and or because of maybe their defense isn't as good. Doesn't have to be down, but people are going to predict that. So if that's right, you would think you'd see more passing, and maybe then you get Allen back up into the 4,000-yard territory. Even 4,000 yards if you take out his first 2 years, first year he played part-time, because he had that elbow injury in Houston. He started game 2 as a rookie, right? The big plan that Nathan Peterman won the job and then couldn't even make it to the third quarter of the opener. Okay, well, that was worth a lot. And then Allen the next year played them all. He's played them all ever since, pretty much, except for the occasional final game of the season meaninglessness. And so since 2020, 6 years ago, he has been about 4,300 yards or more the first 4 of those years, and then down pretty sharply the last 2. Attempts down as well, naturally. And, why? Why is that? Diggs was gone. That changed things a lot. He didn't have an elite number 1 receiver anymore, far from it. And then you had Cook pop, leading the league in touchdowns, leading the league in rushing, positive game scripts. You just didn't need Allen to be as prolific throwing the ball. So a sharp decline the last 2 years from the previous 4 in terms of his yardage volume as a passer. So 3,600 to me, given Warren's point, the schedule, the game script stuff, seems pretty modest. If I were to bet that, I would bet the over on Allen. Just really, that's entirely why. Is thinking that they might need him to do that. And if they do, shouldn't it work out? I mean, no matter what you think of the Bills receiving core, if they need Allen to throw 40 passes a game now because they're losing or whatever it is, then you would think that wouldn't go so badly. I think interceptions would tick up, and that's another one. So he threw 10 last year, and this year's line is 10.5. So I think I would go over on his yards, over on his interceptions, and then maybe also over on his touchdowns. 24.5 touchdown passes would be 24 would be his lowest again since 2019. Really, we're looking at statistically in the betting markets, we're looking at Josh Allen in a new way, where he's more not quite game manager, won't go that far, but not the pinball machine numbers, some of them anyway, from say 5 years ago. So modest lines on passing yards, passing touchdowns, 24.5, interceptions, 10.5. Last year, touchdowns, he had only 25, his lowest in 6 years. Everything's his lowest in 6 years. And then you have rushing yards at 500.5. And so for some perspective on that, that's a little bit under the last 3 years. It's well under the 2 years before that. I mean, look at the monster seasons, 21, 22. But working backward, the last 3 seasons in terms of rushing yards for Josh Allen, 579, 531, 524. They're offering you 500.5. You can't know if he's going to miss time. If he doesn't, and it's consistent with how he's played, that would be another over. I would be reluctant to do it. I have always been, I mean, it's never been successful, shy about betting overs on his rushing, because I think we see a day where that is curtailed, and that can be from the other reasons. Have to throw the ball more to stay in games. Probably don't want to sound too dramatic about that, but it could be different this year. And just sort of the natural progression for a quarterback who's rushed as often as Allen has. If he has a normal year in the rushing category, he'll maybe get to 1,000 carries for his career. And then you have the touchdowns, which I cannot quit as a stat. Talking to Sal about it on Monday. Any chance I get to marvel at Josh Allen and rushing touchdowns, I'll take it. Because it's just incredible that he ranks as high as he does in NFL history already as a quarterback. I mean, if you had a running back, if it were whoever, James Cook, or, James Cook, who has been here for longer, or McCoy or somebody else, if the Bills had a running back who in the last 8 years had totaled 79 touchdowns, almost 10 per season, I mean, that's record stuff. And they have it in Allen, in addition to everything else he's accomplished. This year's line from BetOnline on his rushing touchdowns is 11.5. And I just can't. It's not on par with his career. I mean, this includes his first 2 years. He averages 10 per. And if you take out, well, if you just make it the last 3, it's 41 rushing touchdowns the last 3 years, almost 14 per season. 14 last year, 12 the year before, 15 the year before that. I have never wanted to bet the over on this. There's the injury thing, although he's been impervious to that so far. And then just sort of like let's be normal, let's just be people here. 11 and a half, 12 more rushing touchdowns again. And this is always, haven't really gotten too far into it, and I'm not sure I will today. But it's always an interesting topic these summers with Allen and rushing, and whether or not this year will be the year where they rein him in this way. I think they've certainly talked about it. New coach now, but they've certainly talked about doing it. Brandon Beane has talked about it. I think all else equal, everybody in the organization that matters would like to see those numbers come down just for his own sake, right? I mean, durability and the rest, he's everything to their chances. But it hasn't really happened yet. I think they've wanted to see it, and I think what's happened is they get to a point in their season and they feel like, well, this is it now. And there's no sliding anymore. There's no throwing the ball away anymore. We need this first down. We need this touchdown. And I think probably that would be their attitude again this year. Maybe not, but Allen hasn't sounded. It's the interview with Tyler Dunn I'm thinking of. You know, he had that comment to Tyler about basically, in so many words, I'll play until I can't play the way I want to. Well, we know what that looks like. The way he plays, that's how he wants to play. And that includes, absolutely sometimes reckless approach with the ball. I mean, he's going. And maybe it's as simple as when he feels like he can't go like he used to be able to do, maybe that's it. But there's no sign at all that we're there yet. I just can't get to any quarterback, well, probably, try me, rushing for more. If anybody's going to do it, it's probably him, right? 11 and a half touchdowns. So I'm kind of like over on all the passing stuff with Allen. I doubt I'll actually play any of this, but maybe. Over on all the Allen passing stuff, tougher schedule, a new coach that maybe it'll be correct that he wants to open Allen up. He's got DJ Moore. If it's right that Brady has been held back in some ways by McDermott, well, okay, here's his chance to prove that he was. And there are people who think that was the case. Again, talking with Matt Collar today, this came up, and he asked me, a question kind of about Brady and what might be different about it. And I referenced how I always say the one thing, like every coach says they're going to be more aggressive, and nobody ever doesn't say that. So I mentioned that. I've mentioned how, you had people, I think maybe Sal, I'm not sure, but some of the inside voices are talking like they think Brady is held back fair to McDermott, like just sort of couldn't do everything he wanted to do. The implication seems to be that this is just going to be bigger, whatever that means on offense. That's probably more passing, but it's just going to be bigger. And I don't know. I feel like that's the message that if I were Brady or if I were the Bills, I would want out. And there's no evidence really of anything yet. So really, it's just talk. And, if you're asking Brady himself, even off the record, about this kind of thing, I think that's what he's probably going to want you to know, is that, I want to do things a little bit differently, whatever that is. But we have no sign of it yet, and we may not until game start. Like even in the preseason, what kind of evidence will there be? Yesterday, we talked about Brady some, and I got a call from a fan who's like, how can you believe in this guy? And I thought that was way too harsh, because I think there are ways to do it. I said yesterday, and at the time he was promoted, I think it's kind of weird that they fired Sean McDermott for the sake of change and then promoted their offensive coordinator. Like, I did not expect that to happen after the McDermott move. But what he's got in front of him, plus side, obviously, Allen, and he's been here. Like, he's familiar with what he's got, and they're familiar with him. He's even familiar with DJ Moore from Carolina. So there doesn't need to be any sort of ramping up period, I think, for their offense. But look at who he's going up against on the schedule this year, the Bills. Like, we've talked about the schedule, of course, and the challenges. The beginning is kind of a gauntlet. There's another one later on in the season. But think of it, or look at it in terms of coaches. D'Amico Ryan's okay. I mean, they've won that division 2 of the last 3 years. They've been a playoff team. He probably deserves some credit. And, C.J. Stroud hasn't really been good at all for the last couple of years. I don't want to put D'Amico Ryan's on the list of some of these other guys, but, I think he's respectable. I think that's fair. Then you get Dan Campbell in week 2, our king. Everything, like fourth downs, of course, all that stuff. But Campbell has fans in every corner. He's got the nerds, he's got the jocks, he's got sort of everybody. It's a bounce back year opportunity for them. They were down last year, but he's won a lot of games and has earned a lot of respect. Then you go to Jim Harbaugh in week 3, whose teams are always good, with Mike McDaniel, by the way, and every fantasy show I'm on, people are gaga for the Chargers because of the players they have, and now Mike McDaniel. Then you go to Mike Vrabel. No kidding. Like, Mike Vrabel, coach of the year, defending coach of the year. You know all about him. That's week 4. Then you go to Sean McVay. How about that stretch? Are they all coach of the year winners? I don't know if Campbell won, but Harbaugh's been to a Super Bowl. Vrabel, McVay's won. Like, you've got a pretty good run there. Clint Kubiak with the Raiders. People like his mind, his vision of offense. He's not deserving of being in this club yet, of course, but, people tend to be optimistic about him. Baltimore's coach is new, Minter. Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota. Matt, by the way, I think called the Bills game in Minnesota the Vikings game of the year. Like, the best game on the Vikings schedule is the Bills game in week 9, Monday night in Minnesota. Aaron Glenn, Jeff Hafley. I mean, if the Bills are going to get there, you kind of think they might have to just sweep the Jets and Dolphins. The weakest games on their schedule would seem to have to be 2 Jets, 2 Dolphins, and then Raiders, and then I don't know after that. So you get your Jets, Dolphins back-to-back. They have that twice. The last 2 games of the year are against those teams as well. Andy Reid, Thanksgiving. Vrabel again. Matt LaFleur in Green Bay. Something to be said for that guy. Been there a long time. Ben Johnson in Chicago. We're into Christmas time. Sean Payton again in Denver, and then the Dolphins and the Jets. So really it's, for me, more about the first 5 weeks and what Brady has in front of him, just the teams, and, naturally it lines up. It's the coaches. D'Amico Ryans, Dan Campbell, Jim Harbaugh with Mike McDaniel, Mike Vrabel, Sean McVay. Brady's going to want to come out of the box pretty hot, and he's going to maybe have to, or the Bills are going to maybe have to hold their own against those teams. And I think if they don't, Brady is probably who we're talking about. Brady and Bean. It's not going to be Allen. Like, that's a tough start. Raiders away, break, and then the Ravens. Really interesting year. They all are. So there are some of Josh Allen's stat lines for the year and some thoughts on the new head coach. Like I laid out before, Paul Hamilton coming up. We'll talk about the schedule announcements. The whole thing comes out tomorrow. It's been a long time since I've been this eager to see it, and I don't have tickets anymore. I'm just kind of like a lot of you are going to be, sort of in a Sabres mood. So we'll see what that looks like tonight or today. It was announced who they open with at home, Chicago, and then also that, because all the teams announced their home openers, they'll start the season as the road team for Columbus's season opener in Columbus, October 1st. So Paul coming up, Ryan Paganetti, Brian Koziol, maybe with Bulldog as well for the golf picks later on. Thanks for being with me. I'm Mike Schopp, and this is WGR.
For more comfort.
Now's the perfect time to make yourself comfortable with a new electric heating and cooling system from Belknap.
In Western New York, summer and winter bring extreme temperature conditions. Make yourself comfortable with Mitsubishi electric heat pumps, designed to keep your home cool in the summer and warm in the winter, no matter how hot or cold it gets outside. Call Belknap today to learn more.
I'm Gary Gorfel, president of Belknap. We work on your schedule. We don't charge more for weekends and evenings. That's why we say,
Give Belknap a ring.
appreciate being reminded of that now that we know their first 2 games. I was sitting here thinking I would ask Paul to predict the outcomes, the scores even, of the October 1st game in Columbus and the October 3rd home opener against Chicago. But just to make sure, Paul, you're not going there, are you?
No, I'm not going there.
Too soon? Too early? maybe the day of, but probably not, right? We're not predicting hockey games. Fun to think of the Blackhawks for the opener, though, the home opener, right? I mean, that's happened a long time ago, but not a conference opponent. And it's Bo and Byram on a Saturday night. You can start to look forward to that.
Yeah, I mean, they pretty much finished the year in Chicago. Right at the end of the year. And now they're going to start the home part of the year against Chicago. So Bo Byram it'll be a homecoming right away for he and Jordan Greenway. So we'll see how he feels about training camp and his new team when he gets here, and see what the Sabres will be all about then, and see if what we're looking at now is what we'll be looking at that night, or will we be looking at some other things?
Right, Greenway too. Paul, how much do you think the Sabres will miss Byram?
Quite a bit. I mean, the thing is, to have a guy, I mean, he is talented, and he was basically your number 3 or 4 defenseman, probably number 4 once Power really started coming into his own last year. And that was no insult to Byram. It's just who Buffalo has. And that's one thing Kekalainen talked about in his press conference at the end of the year, how he felt they had the best 4 in the NHL, and I could make that argument too.
Yeah.
As far as that went. So and that's really one of the biggest reasons he wanted to leave. He didn't want to be a number 3 or 4 defenseman on a team. He wanted to be a number 1 defenseman, and that was not going to happen here. It wasn't going to happen in Colorado either for him with Makar. So now he's in a place where it is going to happen for him, and but he doesn't have a real good team around him. So I think his numbers aren't really going to come out real well unless the Blackhawks shock us and become a very good team quickly. And he's got some suffering ahead of him right now.
He got that money, though, like you talked about.
Money.
he got his number 1 defenseman money for sure. I mean, he might be tops in the league now at the position.
No, I never would have dreamed that he would have been able to get that. And Quinn Hughes will surpass that without question. So, especially with the salary cap going up as much as it has, which tells us the NHL is doing quite well, because that means revenues are going up.
Yeah, how about that?
At a big pace for the salary cap to go up at the pace that it's going up.
We're only in the middle of this sort of new, exciting period in their history. You don't know how long it'll last. Hopefully it's not already the end of it. But, it's the beginning of a stretch here where you'd like to think, by their roster and the ages of their players, that they could sustain success for several years here. I wonder how Byram, if that happens, will be remembered as a Sabre, as a part of the team where they popped it, where they broke through. Because he was no small part of that. I mean, he, like you talked about, he wasn't Dahlin either, but he wasn't insignificant to the story here.
And he had a rough start this year. I mean, a lot of people point to his numbers this year, and I think part of that is before December when they got hot. He wasn't very good. It wasn't going well for him. And then he got really good and played well, as did the rest of the team. And they all just kind of gelled, where it almost didn't matter which defensive pair was on the ice. The Sabres were giving up very few scoring chances. They weren't turning the puck over, to produce those scoring chances against their goaltenders. Their goaltenders were, their save percentage was number 2 or 3 in the NHL last year. And a lot of that is because they cut way down on the types of scoring chances that they were allowing. And Byram was a big part of that. He played a lot of penalty kill for them and eventually wound up on the number 2 power play for Power. I mean, let's just face it, as a young defenseman, the power play is not working for Owen Power in the National Hockey League. I'm not saying it never will, but it just wasn't. And they recognized that finally and pulled him off it and gave Byram an opportunity, which if we're all being honest, I don't think went real well either. But he'll be on the number 1 power play, I'm sure, in Chicago.
Paul Hamilton on the Wester Hotline. I'm Mike Schopp, getting some hockey talk in. Bulldog is off this week. So we're just kind of like maybe now more back in our chairs with the idea of there being a big move coming from the Sabres. The farther we get into the summer, the less likely it would seem, but that doesn't have to be, like it's not 0% or anything at this point. Thinking about Hellebuck again, Paul, and what the Sabres might have to give up to get him. Do you have an idea of like what you think he might take in a trade? Are we looking at 3 of these young pieces in your mind? Are we looking at even possibly the draft picks they just made? I don't know if it would ever get to that point, but what would you see a trade looking like?
Well, it sounds like, if reports are correct, and this would track with Kekalainen, it sounded like he just didn't want to give Winnipeg the 4th overall pick. It sounded like he wanted the 8th overall pick in return as part of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
And Winnipeg was going to, no, that's not going to happen. And then, Winnipeg, went a little too far. I think Mertka fine, but, we're not going to throw the number 4 pick and Helenius in there, type of a thing. And, it was just a big ask. Jack Quinn was involved in that also. And it was just a big ask. And to me, it just appeared that, all right, now they want Helenius. Nah, you know what? No. This is going to have to come down a little bit before we're interested if you're the Sabres. Now, that doesn't mean they still won't talk about it. They probably have. It sounds like they have. And but if the price doesn't come down, I would be shocked if that trade is made, especially since Kekalainen has said more than once that his goaltending, he's happy with his goaltending, and he's even indicated there's a pretty good chance they will run back the 3 goaltenders that they had because he liked them. And I've said, and I'll say it again, it wouldn't shock me if there's an injury to Luukkonen in their line, if all of a sudden Ellis took the bull by the horns here and wound up in their net. I mean, that wouldn't shock me at all. There are a lot of folks who think highly of Colton Ellis, and so if he gets an opportunity like Bussy did this year in Carolina, and that's, I don't know if I mentioned this to you or not, that makes me scratch my head, the reports that Carolina's in on Hellebuck. It's like, Bussy had a really, really good regular season. I mean, he came from nowhere off the waiver wire and played really, really well and put up really good numbers. And then when they needed him the most at the end of the Stanley Cup playoffs, he was fantastic. So I'm kind of scratching. And then you signed him to a contract. So why would you be interested in Hellebuck? You just won the Cup with what you have. That's strange to me. I don't know why they would have an interest in that. Give up assets to get something that, I don't know, I just don't feel they need.
Not to mention Freddie Anderson, who got them to the finals, basically,
right.
With a dominant playoff season as well.
He's gone, but they still have Bussy and the Russian kid, who they're high on, so they're still in the,
Mm-hmm.
they had 3 goaltenders. And he got into a little bit of the playoffs once it was Bussy and him because they didn't dress Anderson as the backup because of his injury. So, I just that's why I just wonder how accurate that report is because I don't understand if you're Carolina, why would you be in on this?
Your Ellis point is interesting. I mean, for all the time I've spent talking about just how random goaltending is in terms of predictability, there's a guy that they liked well enough to keep him around all season. It was somewhat controversial, at least for a while, they're doing that. And so, I mean, if he's somebody that they're right in terms of projecting his talent, I mean, he'd have to get a chance, which probably means something is going wrong, whether that's an injury or something else. Not necessarily for him to get that chance, but if he were to, I wouldn't assume that he couldn't play well.
And, Mike, I think more and more teams are going to do it. Go with 3 goaltenders because of the E-Bug rule. You have to have the E-Bug, but you can have 3 goaltenders, which means you can do what the Sabres did twice this year when one of their goaltenders got hurt. Luukkonen did it once and Lyon did it once, where they came down from the press box dressed. They couldn't sit on the bench, which I don't understand. Well, I don't know why they can't get on the bench, but they can't. but they can sit in the locker room ready to go if the goaltender that's in. That's the only way they can go in is if the second goaltender gets hurt, and then you can put him in. So they don't have to go to the e-bug, and I think more teams are going to do that now. From what I'm reading, we're going to see a lot more teams have 3 goaltenders because you don't want to get down to that e-bug, not that it happens all that often anyway. Yes, you're going to have one there for the visiting team. But, if you've got your 3 goaltenders. So I think more are going to do it. And and the thing I liked about Ellis is he could sit there for a month and be ready to play. I mean, he would stay after practice and work on things that players wanted to work on or he wanted to work on.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it was long periods of time in between starts, and he'd start and win the game. And I thought, well, there's a kid that keeps himself ready and keeps himself ready to go, and this is his first NHL season. Then I see what Bussy does, and he came to Carolina the same exact way off waivers in the beginning of the year, and he got his opportunity, and look what happened. So, I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen. All I'm saying is it wouldn't surprise me at all if it did.
What do you think about Quinn as a piece in a trade offer involving Hellebuck or I suppose anyone else? I mean, we all maybe have different rankings of the young players and just like how willing you might be or you think the Sabres might be in disposing them. None of that will be easy if it comes to it. Is Quinn for me is one of the more obvious ones where, I mean, I appreciate his talent, but I'd have an easier time letting go of him than certain others.
Absolutely. No, there's no question. I would get rid of him before Ostland or Helenius or even some of the guys who we haven't even seen sign contracts yet. And Jerry Fortin said something the other day, which is very true. If you don't keep stocking the cupboards as you go along, it will hit you rather quickly. So, yeah, people say, well, you got a lot of these prospects. Well, yeah, you can use them for trades. You've got a lot of them, and we know they all can't be in Sabre uniforms, but you might need something at a trade deadline or now if there's a player, let's say all of a sudden Dylan Larkin says he would come to Buffalo. Okay, it's going to take some of these guys then that you've got stocked in college hockey or up in junior or overseas or wherever they happen to be. And Jerry Fortin, he's very, very good at judging talent. And I found that out when he was an assistant coach at Niagara. And Niagara would wind up with players that I'm sitting there going, how is this player not at Wisconsin or North Dakota? He would get these blue chip guys that you wonder how he got them. But, and then Niagara would wind up in the NCAA tournament, or they would upset some. They had some pretty big upsets along the way back when I was doing hockey there, and Jerry Fortin was there. And he showed me how he really has a good eye for talent, and I think, he's done that with the Sabres too, and now is in charge of their drafts.
Steve Yzerman, Paul, sort of resigns. I mean, he's going up, not down, but that didn't work out, Detroit.
Yeah, I'm not kind of buying that. That is, in my estimation, this is my opinion, one of the best players in Detroit Red Wings history, and we're going to try to not embarrass him as much as we can. So let's call it a resignation or whatever. If he doesn't have another job somewhere else, then we'll just use him as an advisor. But how much is he actually going to be advising? So yeah, that's just understanding what the type of player he is in Detroit Red Wings history, and we just don't want to throw him out the door.
Mm-hmm.
But the timing of it is interesting. I mean, you've let him go through the draft.
It's late.
And free agency and, whatever trades might be there. And now the question in my mind is, does that change Dylan Larkin's mind at all? Because there was credible reporting out there that Dylan Larkin and Yzerman did not see eye to eye on things. And that was part of what this is about. So now that Steve Yzerman isn't in charge, is it possible Dylan Larkin might say, okay, he might wait to see who is in charge and say, you know what, maybe I like the direction this is headed in now and rescind the trade request. So we'll see how this goes down and if it changes anything for Dylan Larkin.
Or perhaps Yzerman couldn't get him moved or wasn't willing, and we're going to have somebody else take the wheel on that. So we'll see.
Jason Botterill he wasn't willing to purge his hockey department, and that cost him his job because it was just I don't even know if it was a month where Kim Pegula had said Jason Botterill was staying and everything, and I don't even think it was a month earlier. And the next thing you know, Terry Pegula and Kim Pegula are sitting at a press conference saying we do not believe we were being heard, and that's when Kevin Adams was hired, and he purged the hockey department. Now, I will give Kevin Adams credit. It was a lot of people lost their jobs. But Kevin Adams realized rather quickly we went too far. I mean, the guy that left today, Jeremiah Crow, he was in charge of amateur and pro scouting. That's too big of a job for one person. It just is, especially an inexperienced at the time person. And Kevin Adams realized that and said, "No, well, we got to change this. I mean, we went too far here. We got to start getting some people back in the organization," and they did. So I'll give him credit for that, to realize that this went too far and convincing Terry Pegula that it went too far.
And now we have John Davidson, Paul.
Yeah, he's an advisor. It sounds like he has the same role with the Sabres as Kevin Adams has with the Bruins. So he's a senior advisor and somebody that Kekalainen is very familiar with in Columbus. And I think Davidson might have been the one that fired Kekalainen, wasn't he?
Maybe. Yeah, they were there together for a bit, so maybe.
So maybe not maybe. There are no hard feelings there. Otherwise, Kekalainen wouldn't have brought him in, and maybe Kekalainen felt I didn't get the job done. So maybe, he was well-founded to do it or whatever. But whatever, if there was any problem, it's been healed, and they are now together again.
Paul, stay indoors today.
I still have a lot of stuff to do outside. I may still get out there yet. I haven't been out there yet.
Okay.
So we'll see. It's
Rebel.
It's not like I obviously see the smoke now, but I've never smelled it, or it's never bothered me. When we've had this the past couple of years from the wildfires up in Canada, but my bushes look like nobody lives here, and my lawns get a little bit long. So, and I'm thinking the sun's not going to be beating on me, so maybe it's not as hot as it could be.
All right. Well, good luck out there, Paul. If you risk it out there. Thanks for your time today.
No problem. Nice talking to you. Take care.
Paul Hamilton on the Western Hotline. His appearance is brought to you by Raylax Honda. Raylax, we got this. I'm not even sure the Sun Point holds. It might still be. I don't know. I'm going to say something and it's going to sound like I really know this, but isn't it maybe one of those deals where the rays are still reaching you, but you just can't see them or something? Are you still maybe at risk sun-wise? Anyway, I don't know. I'm just filling time. Ryan Paganetti coming up in 15 minutes here on WGR. Coming up in about 10 minutes, Ryan Paganetti. He's been with the Eagles, Jaguars, and Raiders as an analytics director and consultant. Somebody that I've recently learned of, and I want to see where he thinks we're at in the NFL in terms of, those kind of decisions that you and I have argued over for, almost 25 years now, and more. It'll be interesting to find out more about his career. He's not currently with a team, but he's building a social media platform and might be an interesting follow for anybody who wants to learn more about, why teams make the decisions they do. Why are they going for 2 when they're down by 8? Like that sort of stuff. The stuff that the geeks love. Not to say I'm calling Ryan a geek, because I'm not. If I'm calling him one, I'm calling myself one. So that's coming up after the break. Pick 10 golf picks later with Brian Koziol as well, and more. I'm Mike Schopp. This is WGR.
We've been living in sin so long, all the feels are gone. Fella stopped me on the street last night, said everything's alright. Roller coaster, make it through the day, I'm right. It seems your meal ticket is gone, but life goes on. I could never imagine something better. Yeah, right. Now you're cooking on high heat in the middle of the street. Roller coaster, take me to a better time. Let's go. All sing your high line with the roller coaster of life. seem to easily forget how to place your bet. When everyday life gets you down, you gotta steal the crown. Got to own it. Don't bitch and moan about it, please. God forbid you scrape your knees, and it's nothing to sneeze at. Oh, I've told you over and over again. You gotta get both hands around it and make your own plans. Roller coaster, it's taking over. It's about time.
Just a few more minutes until the second half gets underway down in Atlanta between Argentina and England. It is semifinal number 2 at the World Cup. It is 0-0. Argentina looking to make it back-to-back finals at the World Cup, while England is looking to make it back to the World Cup final for the first time since 1966, the year they did win the tournament as hosts. The winner from today will face Spain on Sunday, while the loser, they're going to get France on Saturday. Do have some big news out of Detroit in the NHL. Red Wings GM Steve Yzerman stepping down from his current role and will become a senior advisor to team CEO Chris Ilitch. Yzerman has been the GM in Detroit since 2019, but has been unable to lead them to the playoffs during his tenure. We also did get some schedule nuggets today for the upcoming NHL season. The full schedule is going to release tomorrow. However, for the Sabres, we do know they're going to open up the season at Columbus on Thursday, October 1st, and then the home opener is going to be Saturday, October 3rd against the Blackhawks. For more on this, we do have a piece up at our website, WGR550.com. Then to baseball, no games today. The All-Star break, though, is in the rear-view mirror. Games, though, technically will get underway tomorrow. We'll have just one of them. Phillies hosting the Mets. The league at large will get going again on Friday, as will the Bisons. They're going to have a 3-game series at Syracuse starting again on Friday and wrapping up over the weekend. That's Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
They have this Panther sound effect that is just the cheesiest, stupidest sounding thing. Big voice guy going, Panther goal scored by Sam Reinhart. Where'd you get that thing?
I trapped it. Been keeping it in my bathroom at the motel, feeding it old pizza.
It's Mike Schopp.
If you're calm, that wondrous big cat will be calm too. But if you're scared, that beautiful death machine will do what God made it to do, namely, eat you with a smile on its face.
And the Bulldog. On WGR Sports Radio 550.
Pick 10 for the Open Championship later today. I'm up. I don't think I'm going to put Padraig Harrington on my list, but, you know, we love to lose. I'll throw $10 on it. Plus 75,000. $10 to win 7,500. If the most dominant senior player who's won that tournament on that golf course were to win, I don't know. I got $10 for that. Just telling you. I'll be fine if I lose the bet to Brian and Bulldog, but win that. That'll be fine. I'll pay him double. How about that? I'll say it now. With me now on the West Her Hotline is a new guest to the show, Ryan Paganetti. Ryan and I have not spoken before other than on Twitter, and I'm excited to welcome him because he speaks my language, and I flatter myself to say that. Football analytics. Ryan was with the Eagles when they won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles, then Jacksonville, and last year Las Vegas. And Ryan, I'm Mike. Thanks for your time today.
I really appreciate you having me.
You're welcome. So you're not with a team now, but you're building a brand, it seems, online. And ever since I heard your name for the first time last week, I think I've seen it a half a dozen more times since already.
Yeah, I really just kind of went down this direction. And, the quality of life of being, part of an NFL organization or coaching staff can be quite extreme. You're talking in times 110-hour weeks. And, if your team's not very good, I unfortunately was part of a team that wasn't particularly good last year. I sort of wanted to give this a route and open things up to sort of consulting opportunities. And I think there was a perspective I had that was a little bit unique. And basically, I just wanted to give it a shot. And so far, there's been a really incredible reception on it so far.
Yes. I heard you first with Scott Barrett on a podcast a week ago, and you were talking about your time with Doug Peterson and the Eagles. Ryan, how did it start for you?
I started out actually in 2015 with the Eagles, and I just, wanted to get my foot in the door. I was great. I was fortunate to be able to get in, and I was able to stick around through a head coaching change. And then Doug Peterson sort of put me in a role where he wanted me to really focus on any kind of numbers or stats to help the coaching staff for the Eagles, and it really kind of took off from there. He had an amazing attitude about using the data. The ownership, Jeffrey Lurie, had an amazing attitude, and I was doing the game management stuff during the games and communicating when to go for fourth downs and 2-point conversions. Here's what the numbers say. And in that 5-year stretch I was with them, we ended up going for 25% more fourth downs than any other team and 60% more 2-point conversions. We were leading the league in quarterback sneaks and different things like that. And it was an amazing experience. And it was awesome to, be able to win the Super Bowl with those guys. And I was fortunate that the organization entrusted me in a role to kind of be able to contribute there.
And I was so jealous. I think it was a Bill Barnwell piece that year talking about, was it Red, Yellow, Green? Was that it with Frank Reich and Peterson? And maybe I have the year right.
Yeah, we were kind of modifying that over time, and I was always trying to frame things in a way that would really sell it a little bit more on the coaches. So there was the ones that were kind of strong go for it versus the ones that were leaning go. And it originally had started out, I wanted to make sure that we were hitting on all the strong go for it. And as time went on and Peterson was more and more confident with the system, it was, more of that was the strong goes, and he would go for the lean go ones as well. And so it's actually a process that a number of teams around the league have kind of tried to emulate over time. And you've seen the fourth down numbers kind of go through the roof around the league.
At that time in Buffalo, I've been here on the air for more than 25 years. And a lot of those years, the Bills were just mediocre. And it always frustrated me that they would, for instance, they would play New England twice a year, but they would play them as if, they expected to win, not looking for any particular edges like this stuff, not accepting the fact that they were underdogs. And they just didn't, they were too proud, I guess. It's not just the Bills. I mean, this is almost all teams. So I begged for a coaching staff, and then you would need ownership probably to come around. And, as this is percentage. These are percentage plays. This is not just like, Hail Mary stuff. These are percentage plays. So when Philadelphia started to make a name for itself with your involvement doing it, I was just so excited about it. And the question we would ask is, how do you get the coach to sort of a former player, right? Like a lot of coaches, how do you get him to sign off? And you're talking about Peterson like maybe he wasn't that tough a sell.
No, I think what happened is that it was clearly organizationally something that Jeffrey Lurie believed in, and a lot of their personnel decisions were sort of instilled on those data-driven principles. Like go look for a time that the Eagles drafted a running back in Jeffrey Lurie's tenure. I don't even think there's a single time. Like examples of these analytics arguments showing up on the personnel side, and they would try to advocate on the coaching side. And I think part of the reason it was a little bit easier with Coach Peterson is he was not a victim of his own success, where you have a lot of these veteran head coach play callers that have already won a ton of games in their career, and they're thinking, why am I going to listen to this nerd telling me I'm screwed up? There was this, and he had a fresh mindset on handling these situations, and I think it was really productive. And that I don't think I would have had the same success, and I don't think I would have had anywhere near the same buy-in if I had stepped in with a coach that, say, had been in the league for 15 years as a head coach, and then all of a sudden tried to tell him, hey, there's some data saying that you should try this instead.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking of his contemporary here at the time with the Bills is Rex Ryan. And we talk to Rex every week, but I don't think there was any getting through to him about this. He knew better. Would you go as far as to say, Ryan, if I may ask, that you think you had a role in convincing Peterson to think like this?
I think so. He was so receptive, and as we sort of talked about what the role of me helping during the game would consist of, he's like, whatever you think is best, and I was really hammering him with all these different charts and tables, and Jeffrey Lurie was seeing the same, items, and I think that combination was like, not only is the person that's writing his check giving him the data, but he's seeing that from analysts. He's asking questions. He's wondering if I can modify this. He wants to know exact details of what assumptions are going into this model that explains this. And I think it allowed him to be very comfortable with it, as opposed to some people, their attitude from the analytics is they just say, just go for it. Well, you have to explain exactly why it says go for it. When does it say not go for it? If you're the worst team in the league, does it still say go for it? If you're the best team in the league, and that attitude, I always felt like I was a baseball catcher, and I was trying to frame it as well as possible so that he would buy in.
Very cool. Ryan Paganetti with me here on the Wester Hotline. I'm Mike Schopp. Bulldog is off today. Let's talk about the Philly special, the touchdown before the half against New England in the Super Bowl. I'd love to know, like, I'm sure you have a detailed memory of it. I just, as somebody that's always harping on this stuff on my show, like Collinsworth in the booth before that play, they're just almost incredulous that this is not going to be a field goal attempt, a chip shot field goal. And what happens, I think you'd also, recognize with announcers, if you fail, they're going to talk about it until the end of time. Yep. But if it works, it'll never be mentioned again. Like, it's just next time around, same thing. It's why don't you kick? So, I mean, you're not listening to the broadcast at that time, but talk me through sort of like those moments.
Yeah, so what I would say is, we have the exact amount of time remaining effectively, and what our timeout situation is, what their timeout situation is. So, leading into a third down call down there, I'm saying, hey, if we get to 4th and 2 or less, the analytics are going to still say go for it. 4th and 1 or less is going to be strong go. And so, we call third down play, and we get to whatever it was, 4th and 1.5 or so, and Peterson was going to go for it. And we actually were a little bit, there was like a brief hesitation there as we sort of tried to pick the optimal play. Like, talk about a high leverage situation. Because in that case, the field position is going to be worthless if we don't get it, because they can basically just kneel out the half. And so it's a little bit different than if that situation comes up in the first quarter and you don't get it, and all of a sudden they're pinned at the 1, and you can, it's still an advantage for you for your next drive. So, we were a little bit slow getting a play in. There was a little bit extra thinking. We end up calling a timeout, and Doug's on the sideline calling the plays, and Nick Foles on the on the field. And Foles comes over and he communicates to Doug whatever, and we can't hear upstairs what is going on. We had no idea. And all of a sudden he walks back in, and one of our, I think our quarterback coach upstairs asked Coach Peterson, like, what'd you call? And he goes, Philly special. And I just, my heart dropped a little bit, because all I could think about was, these fans are going to, because the fans had kind of caught on to it that I had this role. It had been brought up in the media. They're going to blame me if this does not work. Like, I am not going to be allowed back in Philadelphia. It's going to say Ryan Paganetti told them to run a trick play and throw it to Foles, and like some disaster is going to happen. And then I swear, I really thought I was never going to be back allowed in Philadelphia. And obviously, the play worked, and everyone talks about it, and they did like a TV special on the play. And but there was probably a 50% chance that play could have gone entirely different, and the rest of my life would have gone, played out differently.
I mean, I'm not laughing because you're saying any of that lightly. It's just sort of an amazing story. And sports, whether you're in analytics or a player, I mean, it's just so fickle. So you hit that, right. Then you go on and win the game too. It wasn't like the game was over at that point. But what a great story. Part of what you've written and talked about is quarterback sneaks. Now, Philadelphia is famous for the tush push, but we're going back before Jalen Hurts, I think, here. We certainly are if we're going back 10 years. What have you found and been able to execute in NFL front offices in terms of the quarterback sneak? Is it something that might still be something you'd consider underutilized?
I would say in general, yes, it is still underutilized, but the usage has exploded. So in the year 2016, there was less than 70 sneaks in the entire league, and in this last year, there was about 340. It's really incredible when you think about it. But I grew up in Massachusetts. I went to a ton of New England games. I watched them play the Bills, and unfortunately, they beat up on the Bills a number of times. I was always growing up blown away by how more teams were not copying the Patriots. And, Tom didn't have the most, ideal body for quarterback sneaks, but he was leading the league in sneaks almost every single year. And there was a period of time he had double the rest of the league for a decade. And so I spent that 2017 offseason really kind of finding the bottlenecks with each individual coach. Why are we not using this play? Because my first year with Peterson, we ran one or two sneaks the whole year. And some of these concerns that they had, when you actually looked at the data, they say, you can only do it when it's under a yard. You can only do it when there's an open A gap. And when actually testing these things with as much data as possible, and we had to manually tag things and study all these different metrics, it was very clear that teams they should be just sneaking anyways. Like, it doesn't really matter what the defense is. And, some people were concerned about quarterback injuries. The quarterback injury rate was astronomically low on those plays.
Yep.
And we tried to take those variables and think like, okay, let's capitalize on this. And we had a big quarterback. We invested in the line. We had Brandon Brooks and Lane Johnson and, Jason Kelsey, who's like at the record for most sneaks ever now for centers. And they believed in it and they liked it. We started doing it and the fans got involved. And I think in that 2017 season, we converted every time. And over time, that has evolved into sort of two worlds. There's the normal quarterback sneaks, and then there's these rugby scrum tush-push sneaks. And I mentioned it online. I actually prefer the Buffalo version where you line up in a semi-believable formation because people are coming up with solutions to stopping these rugby scrum looks. They're like dive bombing really low. They're having these tactical strategies of how they're hitting certain linemen, and there's like an overlap player behind. And there's very few other things that you can do from that alignment. When you're in the Buffalo version, you at least have the upside to run other plays because, they have receivers out there. It looks plausible that they could do something else, even if they end up running sneaks at, one of the league highest rates.
70 quarterback sneaks 10 years ago to over 300. I wonder what percentage of that 300 or 300 plus last year, Ryan, is not even run by quarterbacks. I think like Mark Andrews running all the Baltimore sneaks, as a tight end, and other teams, maybe even Goddard once or twice. I know they have Hurts, but why not?
I'll give you a number. There was 46 non-quarterback sneaks, non-quarterback, but yes, sneaks last year, which was the most I have ever seen. Seattle won the Super Bowl. It didn't come up in the Super Bowl. They had been doing it with the tight end. So a few different teams decided that either from a quarterback health standpoint or just from a preference standpoint that they were going to go down that route. I'd say for a team like Buffalo, they don't necessarily need to do that because Josh is so good at them, and he almost has the body of a tight end.
Now, you have pointed out that there is an element of predictability, which might be putting it mildly, to the Bills' sneak attack, so to speak.
Yes. So, obviously there was that unbelievably unfortunate situation for Bills fans where they lost the AFC Championship game. They actually had 4 sneaks stopped in the game. There was 3 of them on offense, defense, and then one was a 2-point conversion when Josh basically threw it to like Curtis Samuel or somebody after he wasn't going to get it. So they really lost. He failed on 4 of them. But, after the game, the Chiefs, one of the Chiefs players mentioned they had a 10-for-10 streak going to the left. And I watched every sneak every week in my time in the NFL, and I knew that number was way more than 10. So this last couple of weeks, I actually went through, and from 2022, about week 10, through this last, through the AFC, up until the AFC Championship game, they had run left 70 consecutive times on their sneaks, which is almost unbelievably incomprehensible. However, they were excellent doing so. So, I think, and then going into that game, the Chiefs had failed to stop 32 consecutive quarterback sneaks. So I totally understand the approach and the attitude. Now, the Chiefs did an amazing job game plan-wise. They clearly knew it was going left. They did some interesting things. They had an extra defensive lineman over there at times. The off-ball players would immediately start running left. That I honestly think that last quarterback sneak that Josh got quote-unquote stopped on, I really think he converted it.
Yeah.
And, and it's unbelievable to think he converts that. I think they're more than likely to win that game in terms of from that moment on, and then they're more than likely to be favored in the Super Bowl. And, I know Bills fans maybe don't want to hear that because it's painful, but it just shows you the margins of how close these things are.
Right.
And, since then, Buffalo, obviously they're aware of the situation. They have some other versions here. They're not going to go left every single time. But from my understanding, part of that left tendency was basically the right-handed nature of the center was that he's using his right hand to snap it. So having his left arm immediately available makes it so that it was easier for him to basically go left and either block a left A-gap defender, or on the nose tackle, they would double team the nose tackle with the right guard and the left and the center. So he would take the left part of that nose tackle, and the right guard would take the right part of his body part. And that, I think, was a kind of an under-discussed part of that. I've talked to a couple of different centers who at least believe that's the case.
Interesting. Ryan, so much good information here. I know you've recently unearthed stats about whether coordinators should be on the field or in the booth, or play callers, either side of the ball. Let's spend a minute on that. I mean, look, it sounds like, or reads like, just a ton of time went into being able to, use all these examples and come up with some interesting information.
Yeah, so I had somebody who's got a really huge following on social media bring up the question, and a bunch of people tagged me and they said, Ryan Pagnetti needs to look into this. And I kind of tried to do a deep dive, and to the best of my ability, I attempted to assess where the play caller was. And I think that I think by the end of it, I had 20 years, and I felt about 99% good of the ones that I had. There were some that were a little bit of a mystery, but the interesting kind of nuance was there seemed to be a boost, even if you remove play calling head coaches, for the play caller to be on the sideline. And I think part of that, just from being in coaching booths for a long time, is the discussions that can take place between the head coach and the quarterback, or the play caller, the head coach, the quarterback, the offensive line, all these different parties on the sideline. It's a real big hassle for the play calling offensive coordinator to speak to the quarterback between drives when he's upstairs. You have to basically use a phone, and it's like very cumbersome, and it's like you're living in the Stone Age to do so. And I think that could be kind of a key layer there. Now, the margin is quite small, and there's some coordinators that clearly prefer being up or down, and I think it doesn't really matter where you are. If you clearly have a preference, but it was some interesting data regardless that I thought was it's the type of thing that I'm hoping to bring the fans that, people will find engaging.
Very cool. Just a couple minutes left here with you, Ryan. What's next in this world with all the transformation, teams figuring it out when it comes to fourth down and 2-point plays? Not everybody's there on the down 8, go for 2 stuff yet. I mean, we're not quite right. It's not unanimous yet. It still baffles the likes of Troy Aikman, which I find hilarious. Why would they do that? You know what? Open one book and find out. Sorry, getting on a tangent here. But what are a couple of things maybe where teams haven't figured out yet that there's an edge, if you know?
I think, you still run into some scenarios where these teams are getting a little too drop back heavy, particularly early on in the games. And for everyone who talks about run-pass balance, I think there's even more importance to play action and run balance. Like it's very highly correlated that the teams that are running a lot of play action are having, more success both on those play action passes, and it gives a little bit of a boost to your run game, because every time that there's a mesh with the running back, these defenses have to respect it more. If 80% of the time that there's a mesh with the running back, the ball's being handed off like that, you get linebackers and second level defenders being able to play downhill more. I think that's going to be a narrative that it continues to exist. Clint Kubiak just won the Super Bowl. They were a heavy play action team. Sean McVay's a heavy play action team. I think it's going to be something that people keep an eye on. The other one that's just totally it's insane is the long field goal attempts ever since they changed the K-balls. So they changed the K-ball process this past year. It allowed the teams to work on the ball a lot more. Mm-hmm. And you saw 74 55-plus yard field goals. The previous year was something like 54. And it wasn't just 55 pluses. You had I was on the wrong side of it. I know Cam Little well. I should work with him, but Cam Little set the all-time NFL record against the Raiders right before halftime. He went 68 yards. And these numbers are like insane. If you said this to somebody 15 years ago, they're like, "What are you talking about? Did they just allow steroids?" Like it's unbelievable. But the number that kind of shocks some people is that in the year 2000, there was one total 55-plus yard field goal in the entire NFL. This last year, 74. And so you start. It's just really it's just wild. And you're talking. You have to handle your end-of-half and end-of-game situations significantly different, because you're the Bills in the playoffs. You're playing Cam Little and the Jaguars, and Bills fans are sweating. If these guys get to the 50, this game might go to overtime. Like, that is like a legitimate concern. You know, I don't remember I think it was whether the score was 3-point margin or 4-point margin at the time, I forget. But that's just like an example of the considerations you have to make that really weren't a thing even a couple of years ago.
Sure. Consider that, plus what they've done with touchbacks, trying to find the happy medium there. And it can be like 2 good plays, put you in field goal range from a touchback.
Right.
Love the point about play action. When Brian Dable was here, he got a lot of credit for that. Play action in motion all the time, and like cheat codes, you know? And I remember, too, and I really liked Micah Hyde, the Bill safety, who was on with us, I think maybe for 2 years every week, at least one. And I was so immersed in all of that one time I brought up to him, hey, Micah, have you ever sort of read anything on or heard any coach talk about how, like, play action from an offense really just there's no reason not to do it? And he's like, come on, no. Of course not. Don't be stupid, you know, like that. But, you know, it seems like an automatic win on any given play for an offense. Maybe you can't always do it. I don't know, but why not? What's it costing you to run somebody across the box? All right. Anyway, Ryan, I've really enjoyed this. It's good to know you, and I'll be reading your work for sure.
Yeah, I'd say for sure it's an exciting time for Bills fans. You know, the team's a great team. Every year they're contenders. I'm a believer in Joe Brady. I think he's got an exceptional offensive scheme. I've long thought that Jim Leonard is an incredibly intriguing defensive coordinator because his production in college in particular was really, really strong. So I'll be keeping an eye on their team, and obviously, you know, I think at some point here soon they're going to finally break through.
Very good. Well, again, I'll be following you. If I can do anything for you, let me know.
Thank you.
Ryan Paganetti, my guest here on the West Her Hotline, talking about some fun last decade or so history with football analytics. The field goal point is interesting. The sneaks, can you believe that? That the Bills ran 70 consecutive quarterback sneaks to the left side in a span of 2.5 seasons. Did you even notice it until the Chiefs called them out on it after beating them? I never noticed it. So there's always the next thing. Any of that of interest to you? 803-0550. We can talk some more about it. England takes the lead over Argentina at the World Cup. 65th minute. England looking to get to the final. 1-0. I'm Mike Schopp, and this is WGR.
We're at the second half hydration break, and England leads Argentina 1-0. Anthony Gordon with the goal. If England can hold on, they will make their first World Cup final since 1966, the same year they won the tournament when they were hosts. If Argentina can come back and win it, they will go back to a second straight World Cup final. They did also win the tournament back in 2022 over France. The winner of today is going to face Spain on Sunday. The loser will play France on Saturday. To the NHL, big news out of Detroit. Red Wings GM Steve Yzerman stepping down from his current role. He's going to become a senior advisor to team CEO Chris Ilitch. Yzerman has been the GM in Detroit since 2019, but during his tenure was unable to lead them back to the playoffs. We also did get a contract signing today. Winnipeg locks down winger Cole Perfetti to a 5-year deal, an average annual value of $6 million. And then there are some schedule nuggets for the upcoming NHL season. The full schedule is going to release tomorrow. For the Sabres, though, we do know they're going to open up the season at Columbus on Thursday, October 1st, and then the home opener will be Saturday, October 3rd against Chicago. We do have some NFL news. Saints insider Nick Underhill reporting that New Orleans has agreed to a contract restructuring to keep running back Alvin Kamara with the team. Then in baseball, games will get going again tomorrow. We'll have just one. Phillies host the Mets, and then the league at large will get going on Friday, as will the Bisons, who will begin a 3-game series at Syracuse. It's Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
We end up calling a timeout, and Doug's on the sideline calling the plays, and Nick Foles on the field. And Foles comes over, and he communicates to Doug, whatever. We can't hear upstairs what is going on. We had no idea. And all of a sudden, he walks back in, and one of our, I think our quarterback coach upstairs asked Coach Peterson, like, what'd you call? And he goes, Philly special. And my heart dropped a little bit because all I could think about was, these fans, they're going to blame me if this does not work. Like, I am not going to be allowed back in Philadelphia. It's going to say Ryan Paganetti told them to run a trick play and throw it to Foles, and, like, some disaster is going to happen. And then I'm like, I swear, I really thought I was never going to be back allowed in Philadelphia.
So good. Ryan Paganetti is the name. That's his Twitter handle, too. How about that? I mean, I am no Eagles fan, but, well, they were playing New England. And you win my heart with stuff like that. Just, it's so easy to rip on a trick play that doesn't work. And it's not like that can't ever be appropriate. But it's always too cute. It's almost like cute should be good. But if it's too cute, then it's bad. Cute can stand. Too cute is the problem. And it just will always be the same, I think. Maybe it's already happened. I don't know. More and more teams getting creative. How about creative instead of cute? Because creative is good, right? Do we have to use a word that we know is insulting? Creative is good. Maybe it's already changed in this way, but look out if, whether you're an analytics director or a head coach or anybody else, calling a play, unconventional play, in a big spot, if it doesn't work. If it does, we'll never even think about it twice. Unless it's, like that is legendary. I mean, that's 4th down in the Super Bowl, throwing a pass to the quarterback. I mean, it has it all. That one has it all. And, like Ryan said, it didn't have to work, but it did, and it worked pretty easily. I mean, Foles, if you remember the play, from Trey Burton, he's the tight end who throws the pass. And Foles is just alone, walks into the end zone on that play. Really good stuff. But the ones that fail, we have a DeMar Hamlin fake punt against the Chiefs in the playoffs that maybe we would not even remember if the Bills could have won that game, and they certainly had chances to later on. But, failed trick plays kind of live forever. And only the very best and biggest of the trick plays that work also do. Hook and ladder, Miami, San Diego, and this one, and I'm sure a few others. 803-0550 for your calls. Did you like that? I mean, Ryan has had a very interesting career, and I'm just getting to know who he is and loved having a chance to sit with him here for the last 20 minutes or so. just before we started talking, the top tweet on my feed is from Travis Yost, and it's a picture of a gas tank where the gas is 90 cents a gallon. And he tweets, if you follow Travis, you can see it. He tweets, @GasBuddy, should I disclose location? Where is this gas tank? Where the gas is, I mean, of course, like mispriced, probably anyway, at 90 cents a gallon. And so I'm like, I see that, I'm like, who is GasBuddy? So I run the cursor over the Twitter handle, GasBuddy, and you know how it says like followed by people that maybe you follow? And so there's that, and it says followed by this person, and 3 others that you follow. So now I click on that to see who is following GasBuddy, and the first name is Barry Bonds. I think the premise here is where you can maybe find out about locations where gas is cheaper. I think, right? Wouldn't that be the point? What do I need GasBuddy for? What does GasBuddy say about itself? GasBuddy helps you save money on gas. All right, well, that works. That holds up. So Barry, what is Barry Bonds up to? Well, for one thing, he's following GasBuddy. He might say that he doesn't know if he's asked. He might say, I didn't know I was following GasBuddy. I don't need to worry about the price of gas. I'm Barry Bonds. I was thinking about him for a minute. Really, the point isn't going to be about Barry Bonds because I don't want to lose you. But like a week ago when I was off, after, I think maybe it was after I was here, it doesn't matter. But recently, one day I was talking about, again, how much I hate instant replay. And in this World Cup, which has been so fabulous, you still have these very sketchy decisions and really just, we can't review all fouls, which is good because that would be insufferable. But if it's a yellow card, we can review it. And we had the one in the game with Argentina and Switzerland where the yellow card was overturned, and because they caught the other guy diving, they gave him a yellow, which meant he would get a red card and be thrown out. And all of this just because we have replay. And as ever, there are people who say that that's all good. He took a dive. Why shouldn't he have gotten a card? But there are just, it's because of the same logic that I use talking about the NFL. It's because there are just dozens of plays in every game that you could do where you could do the same thing. Most of them we probably don't even have replays of. If they do, they might not even want to show them because all it does is make the refs and the league look bad. So I just think if you're picking and choosing those, it's just a endless frustration, and you're not really getting it right any more often, in my mind. I mean, maybe one play, but all the ones you're missing really don't deserve to be overlooked. So it's just like sort of a simple logic point for me about replay. For the number of times when you don't think twice about it and a call is overturned, often even though it doesn't look like it should be, right? How many times, even in this World Cup, do you have the officiating expert come on? I heard it recently in a game when I was driving. That's not a penalty, and then it was. So you can't even get the foremost experts in officiating to agree. That happens all the time in the NFL. I mean, all the time. Then it's got to be clear and obvious and all of this. So how is this about Barry Bonds? Somebody pushed back at me, a few people did, about this replay point, and it's just such an eye roll every time. Like, don't you get it? Come on, don't you get it? They don't get it. And somebody brought up Armando Galarraga's non-perfect game for the Tigers. This was, I think, in 2010. And how, again, it's always the same. Well, what about that? A bad call deprived him of a perfect game. Quick. Name for me anybody that's thrown a perfect game in the last 20 years. Quick. Well, if you're me, you can't do that. I can't think of anybody. But I know of Armando Galarraga because of that play. So he doesn't throw a perfect game, but it's almost better because everybody thinks he deserved it. And how different is his life? He knows that he deserved it. So, I mean, he might as well claim it. There's no perfect game society, right, where he gets to go to a country club once a year and celebrate each other's. He's not. If they had that, he'd be invited anyway, probably. He'd be allowed in. I mean, there's no practical benefit I mean, you know in your mind that you did it, you know, even without the instant replay there to save us all. And, you know, I think when I think about that point, I think about like Andre Reed and, okay, Barry Bonds and guys who, for different reasons, I mean, Reed is now in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but for many years was not. And I would always say about that, I mean, I hope nobody would take offense to this, or Andre Reed himself wouldn't take offense to this, I hope. But the longer he goes as somebody that gets talked about every year about whether they deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, kind of like the better for him if he wants to monetize it, or if he's, you know, if fame is the point. Now, that's different than the perfect game point, because that Hall of Fame is a club and you want to be in the club. But when have we ever talked about Andre Reed since he got into the Hall of Fame? You know, Bills trivia and stuff. He's a Bills legend. But in terms of the league, like, once you get in, that's kind of it. There's no more there's no next thing. You get in and that's it. And Bonds, I mean, this is really not, last point, this is really not still happening, because Bonds is his own subject, Bonds and Clemens. But for a long time, if not still, the debate is, should they be in the Hall of Fame? And, you know, they're not. And maybe they'll never make it. But once they do, that's the end of that. Then he's just a stat, you know? Then he's just a memory. Not to be cold about it, but there is value in being the exception. There's value in the guy who didn't get the call. So I went a long way with the replay into that, or maybe the other way around. But that's where my thoughts went. Here's Dave with us. Hi, Dave.
Yeah, Mike, thanks for taking my call. This is kind of a convoluted question, but about the Bills. Last season, they seem to always have poor first halves and good second halves. It's as if they made adjustments. So I know the league doesn't have a salary cap for coaches. Could they add coaching staff to review in real time and make adjustments on the fly?
Well, I would think that they would probably tell you that they already do that. And I wouldn't dare to tell you different. Just a matter of whether it works out. One thing myself, I don't think about the Bills is that they have too few coaches. I think it's ridiculous almost how many, not ridiculous, I mean, I'm sure they all have their purposes, but how many do we really need? I mean, the position coaches have assistants, and they might even have their own assistants, and all the different, we just talked to an analytics guy. There's lots of those people. I mean, it's dozens on staffs now. And I would probably say, not to sound like maybe they would sound when answering such a question. I mean, if you're asking the Bills this question, they would say, we believe in our people. So you're not asking the Bills, you're asking me. Without any judgment on their people, I think there would come a point where it's too many. Too many chefs, too many cooks, too many voices, too much noise. So I don't think it's a matter probably of too few people. I think it's a matter of having the right ones and those people making the right decisions. So I don't know. That's not how I would think to try to fix that. I think what you said is mostly true, though, about last year. I don't know if it's every year. And by the way, I'm not sure it even matters anymore because the head coach is out. New defensive coordinator, whatever it means to have Joe Brady in a greater position, still the play caller. I do love a team that can get out early, though. Like I've said many times, comebacks get all the glory. But it's way better for your chances of winning to be the team that gets out in front early. You don't want to have to live playing from behind all the time. Get the lead, dictate the game, make the other team have to chase you is better than the other way around. But comebacks are so glorified. Oh, the heart. One thing I got to say about this group, they did not quit. Nobody quits. It's just great. Thanks. You don't even need to say it. Get the lead. That's a sign. Again, I'm not taking this to Dave's idea that it's because they don't have enough coaches. But I think how coaches script plays, how offensive coaches tend to script plays, I would guess that Brady does this, but I guess I don't know for sure. I think we've talked about this with him, that really that is one strong indicator of good coaching is if this is, again, back to a conversation we had with Warren Sharp on the show a couple of weeks ago, that you're really on it. When you can come out with plays that keep your opponent on their heels, that's, a good sign for your team. It's a good sign for your coach. Third quarter is good too. We are 1-1 at the World Cup. Still plenty of time for this goal that I didn't really even see to be overturned. So, again, remember when you're watching sports, don't enjoy yourself in these moments. You got to wait. Make sure it's allowed to count. Argentina is celebrating, as are their fans. It's 1-1. We'll see if it remains that. Late, by the way, in Atlanta, 86th minute. Winner gets Spain in the final on Sunday in New York, and they might have orange skies like we have today. 803-0550 for your calls. We'll talk some golf with Brian Koziol and the Open Championship starting tomorrow. That'll be at 5:30. Lines open until then. This is Mike Schopp on WGR. Mike Schopp here for my friends at Empire Caller 5 at 716-221-4WGR. That's 4947. Wins a $50 gift card to Connor's Restaurant on Seneca Street in West Seneca. Every Wednesday, score 4 Connor's Beef on Weck meals for just $55 or 1 for $15 because Connor's is better. Says it right here. Argentina 2, England 1. All the pressure, shot off the post, comes out to Messi on the right, takes it down to the corner. Beautiful service into the area, headed in, and unless they review this thing and change it, it's 2-1 Argentina with about 6 minutes of injury time left, maybe a little more because of this delay after the goal. Do they count that in injury time? We'll find out. This is Mike Schopp on WGR.
The late magic from Argentina continues on. They score twice in the last 15 minutes to lead England 2-1 with just about a minute or so left in injury time. As it sits, Argentina will go on to play Spain on Sunday in the World Cup final, making it back to another World Cup final. They won the tournament in 22. England still has some time left. They're trying to make it back to the World Cup final for the first time since 1966. The loser of this game will play France on Saturday, and again, the winner will play Spain on Sunday. Busy day in the world of hockey. Detroit needs a new GM as Steve Yzerman stepping down from his current role. He's going to become a senior advisor to team CEO Chris Ilitch. Yzerman has, though, been the GM in Detroit since 2019. However, has been unable to lead them to the playoffs during his tenure. Winnipeg locks down winger Cole Perfetti to a 5-year deal, an average annual value of $6 million. And then some schedule nuggets for the upcoming NHL season. The full schedule is going to be released tomorrow. For the Sabres, though, we do know they're going to open up the season at Columbus on Thursday, October 1st, and the home opener is going to be Saturday, October 3rd against the Blackhawks. For more on this, we do have pieces up at our website, WGR550.com. And then Saints insider Nick Underhill is reporting the New Orleans Saints have agreed to a contract restructure to keep running back Alvin Kamara with the team. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
I clicked 4 things to buy a drink, and now I have to be polled on my ordering experience? How dare you? 1 to 5 stars. I don't know, 2. I guess nobody rubbed my feet.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Sounds like it went seamlessly.
That's between me and you, and me and me.
Yeah.
I'm not telling them how my ordering experience was. I'm losing my mind. That's basically the bottom line here. I'm losing my mind. Anyway.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog on WGR Sports Radio 550.
Still waiting for the final whistle in this second World Cup semifinal. Twitter doesn't seem to like how England has played this today. I haven't been able to watch it that closely. And, you know, I'm Mr. Soccer, so my opinion would have strong weight, would deserve strong consideration. But Twitter seems to think that England, which was up 1-0 for much of the second half, got too conservative. Maybe even subbed in some of the wrong guys. And after a couple of those changes, just became nonstop Argentina offense. And ultimately 2 goals. When I have looked up, and we've had some stoppages here, we've had some hydration breaks on this show, it has been all blue team. But they're still playing 1:01 on the clock, 2-1 Argentina. I had that pool. There it is. Now it's final. Argentina and England, a lot of history, a lot of geopolitical rivalry stuff with England and Argentina. I don't know if England hates Argentina, but Argentina, I think, really hates England or the British. Well, what happens when you're in a pool, you're in a contest, or, you know, I'll draw up something similar to this. I was tracking toward a pretty big win, but needed France and England. And then France loses yesterday, so there goes that. And today I've kind of been sitting here thinking, I kind of hope England loses too, because that'll take a little bit of the sting off. Not sure it really should. And I was hoping England would win otherwise. But, you know, it's like a little bit like, would you rather lose a game by 1 point or 30? You lose by 1, heartbreaking. Sabres Canadians. You lose a series like that, any one play could have tipped it, and, you know, that really hurts. You lose big, Carolina, Philadelphia, Carolina, Montreal. What can you do? Hat tip. Better team won, wasn't me. The ones you lose by an inch, by a goal, by a point, that's 13 seconds, that's Alex Newhook. I mean, there's so many. You don't need me to list them. You don't even want me to. That's this AFC Championship game we talked about earlier with our guest, Ryan Paganetti, where the Bills lose in Kansas City 32-29. Anything like that, just You know, as painful as it is, the Chief rivalry offers you really a test at this, because that first year, the one that baffles me still, that the Bills were just so not competitive in that game in 2020. I mean, they got pretty much trounced in that game. And what you don't do when that happens is spend your time talking about play calling. You know, we did a little bit of that, not play calling, but there were a couple of wimpy short field goals in that game by the Bills, and they ended up just getting boat raced. So you had some of it, but when it's a blowout, not that that was quite a blowout, but when it's a blowout, you really just don't bother with, you know, what ifs. There's no point. But these heartbreakers, it's all you do forever is scrutinize, why didn't we do this? And how about our guest earlier? And he tweeted this the other day. It was a funny timing. Like, I had just chosen to follow him on Twitter. I'd never heard of him before, Ryan Paganetti, before listening to a Scott Barrett podcast. I'm like, oh, this guy's really interesting. So I clicked follow, and then he followed me right back, or something like that. And he said, I thought when I tweeted that Bill stat that I might catch your eye. And I'm like, I didn't even know what he was talking about. But I liked him. And the stat was, anybody on this, did you know this before it was exposed by the Chiefs after that AFC Championship? I did not. I don't remember thinking this one time, that between, Ryan said, week 10 of 2022 and that game in Kansas City that ended the 24 playoff season, the Bills ran 70 quarterback sneaks, all to the left. And you didn't notice it, if you didn't, because almost never were they stopped on those plays. And this is really a fun topic for anybody that really watches the NFL and has a good mind. Like, what else is there to exploit? Who knew that the Bills probably didn't, or were they just laughing, to themselves for 2.5 years because nobody could stop their quarterback sneak, even when it all looked the same? Ryan did point out that, by the way, that what the Bills did in lining up on most of those plays gave them a look where they could actually run a real play. And they weren't all going to be on fourth down, of course. So if you go play action and throw incomplete, then you still have the same 1 yard to get on the next play. And maybe your sneak rate is so good, anybody's is, that you just do it then. But he liked that about their quarterback sneak. Is like, just 2.5 years straight of running only to one side is kind of insane. But my mind races with this. Like, what else is out there? And we're not in football mode here yet. I know that. We don't have games to sort of think about and talk about and scrutinize. And, this is obviously the offseason. But you might have a thing that bothers you or just interests you, makes you curious about, like, why is it always like this? And yours could be very different than anything I think of. And, these kind of opportunities to brainstorm could have served us well in the last couple of years if you or I would have been the only person out here going, they only run quarterback sneaks to one side. And last year, maybe that changed because Ryan didn't tell us that continued through last season. I don't know. But it's pretty nuts that you could do that and get away with it. Basically, he's like, what did he say? 10 years ago, there were 70 quarterback sneaks, and last year there were more than 300. And I'm like, yeah, Ryan, and some of those weren't even quarterbacks. He's like, yeah, you're right, 46. He had the exact number, like right at hand, just 46 quarterback sneaks or sneaks taken by non-quarterbacks on plays last year. And close to automatic. Do we want more? We tried to ban the tush push and couldn't. Do we want more? Everybody just sort of lines up like a rugby scrum and pushes each other for 1 yard. That's not exciting, but it might be efficient. And he also had some great numbers on field goals and I didn't write this one down, but maybe 2000, maybe the year 2000, there was one field goal over 55 yards in the NFL in the whole season. And last year it was like 70 some, did he say? So now you kick off Last year we had more run backs. I know a lot of this isn't fresh. It isn't for me either. I'm just sort of going. You had more kickoff returns, and so teams getting the ball around the 25, something like that. And 2 good plays, you're to midfield. Not even great plays. 1 great play, you're to midfield. And now we're in a league where, unless they change the rule again, those field goals are not that hard from there, from midfield. He talked about, and we did hear this last year, how teams were for the first time allowed to massage, let's put it that way, massage the K-balls and work them over to get them to the kicker's liking. And that made a big difference in field goal success. I don't know. Do we want more of that? I don't think we do necessarily. Just how the game evolves is so interesting. Who knows what'll be different this year, if anything, in terms of the sort of in the background. We didn't all know about the K-balls thing until, you might have had to find out. You might have had to look hard for that information, or somebody just kind of reported it one day. Maybe it wasn't something they wanted out. I don't know. But the balls in baseball is always a big topic, and how they always seem to be changing. And we have that again this year. There's more controversy about the makeup of the baseballs, and what frustrates pitchers, if not players, if not everybody in and around the sport, is this just the total lack of transparency about it. That's the one for all the data, the mountains of data that there is for teams to try to find an edge, anything. The one thing they can't seem to ever know about is the balls. It's a little bit of conspiracy kind of talk, but I think it's probably true. You have marked differences year to year sometimes in home runs and, all kinds of the other more advanced statistics. So, that's one where you and I don't get access to knowing what they're actually doing, which is criminal. It needs to be addressed. Thank you. Frank is next. Hello.
Hey, Mike. How's it going?
Okay.
I'm just wondering how much of a difference DJ Moore would actually make for the Bills, when it seems like offense is usually an issue. Offense usually wasn't the issue, but it seems like defense is really kind of like leaving us wide open gaps sometimes in games. But I'm kind of wondering, is this all we've seen from Shakir, or can Shakir really take the next step and elevate his game this season? Because I think there's a lot to give for that player, but I'm still conflicted about the whole offense versus defense thing, because I'm nervous with Jim Leonhard being the first year as our defensive coordinator, and I'm just thinking there may be a little bit of transition time. I don't know. Just get your opinion on that. Have a great day.
You think they should not have invested in DJ Moore and instead invested in a defensive player? Is that what the bottom line here is?
Yeah, I kind of feel that way.
Okay.
Not necessarily just because of I know our offense was lacking, but I feel like Shakir could have been more of that player. But then maybe it's just because of injuries that held him back, and that's why he's not that player. But I think our defense has been lacking those past few seasons.
Well, that's not true. Their defense has been good to great consistently for the last few seasons. That doesn't mean that has to be true this year. I don't think it's really either or. They have made several moves on defense, and that's probably good. They got old. And some of those guys that they moved on from didn't even sign anywhere else yet, or haven't. Even like Milano and Trey White. I think they're still free agents, unless I missed that during my time off. So that says something. They needed to enter that transition phase. And I think it's probably smart to do that to the best extent that you can with the coaching change, so that you're not square peg round holing it with guys. Go about bringing in types that fit the way your coach wants to run it. So you've got a new, leader in Leonard, and, likewise new players. DJ Moore, man. In terms of Shakir, I don't think there's anything more. I think you've got a good, useful player that is limited, and thus limits what the upside of the offense is, which is, I think it sounds to say that, and I often do, but with James Cook, I would talk about, I guess, scoreboard on this. I mean, you've got the literal league's rushing leader now. But with James Cook, I'd always be like, yeah, he's fine. And usually, fans would be like, what? He's only fine? Like, we've had those arguments a few times. Shakir it's different. It's not fine because you've got a player that is basically your number one receiver. Last year, he caught 72 passes. Second most was 39. Kincaid. Kincaid was second on this team in catches last year in 12 games. 39. So Shakir is like your security blanket go-to guy. He's not huge. He's not late-stage Larry Fitzgerald or somebody that can just post up, run after the catch guy, and you got some big plays out of him. But I just always kind of think that the whole idea here is flawed, that you've got your most important pass catcher is kind of capped in terms of talent. Not going to score touchdowns for you. At 4 last season. Kincaid led them in receiving touchdowns with 5. Again, amazing. To me, anyway. So Shakir's ceiling is low. And I don't think there's a player in there, he's not going to grow or get faster. I don't think there's a player in there that, elevates from that point. Enter DJ Moore. And I just need to see it. Now, he has been in the league a long time, and you could be like, just look at it then. If you need to see it, just look at it. But it's mixed. And it doesn't, even though I think they did great in the trade, Chicago, with the Bills. How about that? The Bills traded with the Bears, and the Sabres traded with the Blackhawks. And I think both teams, both trades were really one-sided. The Bears killed the Bills in the DJ Moore trade, I think, although the Bills get DJ Moore. The Sabres killed the Blackhawks in the Byram trade, although the Blackhawks get the player. It's almost like it's the same trade in reverse. Not really, but, same two cities. I'm just not a big DJ Moore fan, really. And before he was traded to the Bills, and all the fantasy stuff I'm doing, and if his name ever came up in the course of our conversations, which it would have, maybe in the playoffs or at various times. The time he was traded by the Panthers in the big trade where the Bears got Caleb Williams. DJ Moore was involved in that. A team that traded, it was also involving the number 1 pick. It's no small trade. Doesn't have to look bad on him exactly, but, a good young player that the team moved on from in terms of Carolina. I just think there are a lot of questions about what we're getting in this player. He's had a good career. He always has the excuses made for him about not having good enough quarterback play. But then Caleb Williams rolled around, and Moore was just not – what was he in terms of targets on the Bears last year? I'm going to go look. Because there was a decline in his statistics last year, Moore. 50 catches, which was second on the Bears to Loveland, 47 for Luther Burden, who didn't play as much. 44 for Roma Dunze. So kind of spread out, and it's not massively big. I'm not at a point yet. I want to get into football season, and it might have to wait until, other than like what reporters are saying and what coaches are saying and even players are saying, it might have to wait until games start, regular season games start, to see like what did the Bills sign up for here in this player? Big money, big draft capital to get him. And, what's the premise? What's the thesis of the play here? That we can get maybe a little bit back to not quite peak Stephon Diggs, but finally bring in a player that can threaten. Because Shakir doesn't really threaten, other than Allen and I guess Cook as a running back. Not that he catches the ball really at all. It's really about in the running game. But it's not a threatening group, other than the fact that Allen can kind of do anything and make anybody that guy in a given moment. But you're not scared of the Bills' weapons. And so Moore is some effort to remedy that. And I think for a guy who's been in the league, what now? This will be his 9th season. I think it's just okay. I think probably you've got a player who will make some plays for them, He shouldn't be a disaster. I mean, he should have the most important role at his position on the team. That seems likely, safe to assume. And so you want to see what? What do you want to see for DJ Moore? 8 targets a week? Is that enough? 8 targets a week is going to be 120 targets for the season. I mean, that's way more than he had last year. It's not a career high. It wouldn't be a career high for him, but I think that's about commensurate with what you paid for here. And with Allen at quarterback, you've got to think you can make that work to some extent anyway. To what extent, we'll see. I mean, I'm not going to worry about catchable balls with Josh Allen as the quarterback, although with Kincaid, that's been a weird thing. Like that hasn't always been a given, that the ball is right where it needs to be. And that might not be Allen's fault necessarily, but those were some strange numbers, maybe 2 years ago now on Kincaid, like catchable ball rate. But DJ Moore went from 96 catches to 98 catches to 50 last year. And I don't hear people specifically talking about that they saw a decline in him. We've had Chicago guests. We've had Sal, and he's talked to people about him. And I have my own fantasy stuff where everybody on that side of it seems always necessarily lukewarm on DJ Moore. But it's not. I don't hear people saying that it's because they think he slipped. I think there might just be only I don't even know how I want to say it yet. I just know I hear a lot of pessimism about him, and it doesn't have to work out that way. There's the potential that Moore, as the Bills' number 1, can really have a huge season. I mean, 2 years ago with Chicago, much to his credit, 2023, so 3 years ago with Chicago, career highs in catches, well, for then, and then he broke that record the next year. 96 catches, 1,364 yards, 8 touchdowns. I mean, I'd sign for that. We'd all sign for that right now, right? 96, 1,364, and 8. I mean, easily. The next year, 98, 966, and 6. Not terrible. Yards per reception dipped significantly. You saw that. You hear that in the numbers. The catches go up a little bit, but the yards are down by 400. And that's Caleb Williams' difficult season where he was sacked all the time, kind of a dysfunctional Bears team. Then last year, Williams kind of takes off, but DJ Moore plummets. He dropped 400 yards from 2023 to 2024, and then another 300 yards the next year. 700-yard dip, half of two years prior from him. Big curiosity. In fantasy, he goes, for what it's worth, around guys like Mike Evans, who is now with San Francisco, Jamison Williams with Detroit, maybe a little bit after DJ Moore. Carnell Tate, the rookie for Tennessee, goes in the same kind of range usually, or a little bit after DJ Moore. Odunze with the Bears. Devontae Adams is another one that all get drafted. It's like the 5th round, sometimes the 6th round. So it's not like being traded to the Bills meant a ton to his fantasy stock. But there is reason to imagine, as the Bills' number 1, that he pays that fantasy price off pretty easily. We're all hoping, right? That's 96, 13, 64, and 8. I mean, I think I would take a lot less than that even, but that would be great. That's the age 26 season in 2023. Yeah, one of the more interesting storylines of the Bills this year will be DJ Moore. The Open Championship starts, I don't know, tonight? It's the time different tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, middle of the night. I doubt I'll get up for those early, well, no names that usually start these Open Championships. No offense. I didn't make it, so I'm impressed. Anyway, so that's tomorrow. We have our Pick 10 contest here again. Love it. It's my turn this time, so I better get right now, take a hydration break, and go finalize these picks. And then Brian Koziol, and I think Bulldog also will join me, and we'll hash all this out. Thanks for listening. I'm Mike Schopp, and this is WGR.
22 title after taking down England today 2-1, and now they will take on Spain this Sunday in New Jersey. And a quick note on the two teams that are in the finals: both Spain and Argentina are also the reigning champions in their respective regions. Spain winning the latest edition of the Euros, and Argentina, along with winning the World Cup, won the latest edition of the Copa America. Again, this game will be on Sunday in New Jersey. In the NHL, big news out of Detroit. GM Steve Yzerman stepping down. He is going to be taking on a role now as a senior advisor to team CEO Chris Ilitch. Yzerman has been the GM in Detroit since 2019, but was unable to lead the team to the playoffs during his tenure. And then we also got some schedule nuggets for this upcoming season. The full schedule release will be tomorrow, but for the Sabres, we do know they're going to open up the season at Columbus on Thursday, October 1st, and then the home opener will be Saturday, October 3rd against the Blackhawks. For more on this, we do have pieces up at our website, WGR550.com. While in baseball, the All-Star break is now in the rear-view mirror, and games technically are going to get back underway tomorrow. It's just going to be one of them, Phillies hosting the Mets. The league, though, at large will get going again on Friday, including the Bisons, who will begin a 3-game road series at Syracuse. That's Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
How concerned are you with how you'll be viewed in 100 years?
I don't really care. I would like to think that the people that love and care about me think a certain way of me, but I'll be long gone, I'll be dead. I don't think I'll be seeing what people say about me. I'll be 6 feet under. I don't think I'll be a ghost. Yeah, I don't care.
You might want to change the question there to 20 years. I mean, all well and good. Scheffler talks, that's Rory McIlroy. Scheffler talks like that too, like whatever. Legacy, whatever. But like Jack Nicklaus is in his 80s. We're not 100 years from when he was winning majors. We're like 40 or a little more. And, that's kind of a relevant thing, but you make it 100. Although I know somebody in my life thinks like our kids are all going to live to be like 150. And here's where I say, Brian, would you want that? You want your kids to live to be 150? This is where I say what Rory said, which is I'm not going to be here to know. So sorry for a little bit of a morbid opening. Brian Koziol, Tee to Green with me on the West Shore Hotline. We can just talk golf if you want.
Yeah, that wasn't the first question I was anticipating. I think living to 150, if we age the way that we are, at least we're trending to, I don't think I'll be physically in a good state at that point.
I'm like, buddy, if you want to live to be 150, you better cut it out with the Pop-Tarts, the brown sugar cinnamon Pop-Tarts every day. I don't know. Maybe that won't matter. AI and advances in medical research, everything's going to be easily taken care of. I don't know. Is that the world we want? Anyway, again, golf. The Open Championship at Royal Birkdale. The one thing I've read about this course, and I really don't know these Open Championship courses from each other, Brian, until the tournament comes around, and then sort of my memory is refreshed about them. But Birkdale is apparently notorious for how tight it is. Like, this isn't necessarily a bomber's golf course, right?
Yes, you're right on that. And with how firm, and the word that I've been hearing used quite a bit from all the people that are there is crispy. It's going to be playing, I think, it's going to be a course where you're not going to see a lot of drivers hit off the tee. Jordan Spieth on Monday after his practice round said one 6-iron for him ran 300 yards just because it's so dry.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're going to see a lot of irons. I don't think anybody's going to have to necessarily overpower the golf course. So, I mean, whatever the virtue of having super length off the tee, I don't think it's going to matter that much. I think a lot of it's going to be accuracy and placement. So it probably brings more players into play. For you, maybe your job a little bit more difficult, but I don't think necessarily you have to be a long hitter to win this week. It's all about accuracy and, a little bit of luck too, for what it's worth. We know that's a part of sports, but I think more so at the Open than any other of these major tracks, because sometimes you hit literally the dead center of the fairway, but it hits one of those little mounds or ruts and then it runs into a pot bunker and suddenly you have to hit it backwards just to get it back in play. So that's something that maybe is a little bit more, luck oriented than maybe we see in some of the other traditional venues.
Did I read that the fairways run faster than the greens?
Yes, but some of them for sure. The greens, so normally, for those that are familiar with like the stimp meter number, for majors, usually it's maybe 12, 13, Augusta can even go higher sometimes, but usually these are like 10 and a half, 10, and they're not meant to necessarily be super, super, super fast. Like people will probably say, why does this course look so burnt this week or crisp? And, we've talked about this before. The RNA, or the Royal and Ancient that runs this event, they say whatever the weather does, that's how the course is going to play. They don't care if the winning score is +5 or -25. So that's something that kind of what this, what this Open is about. They say, we're going to let this, Mother Nature kind of decide of how this tournament's going to play. And it looks like the weather is going to be really, really nice in terms of the conditions. It's going to be 70s all week. There's really no chance of rain.
Wow.
One unique quirk about this major than maybe the U.S. Open or the PGA is that they don't use the back nine to tee off. And the Masters doesn't either, but they have a much smaller field. So that doesn't maybe impact it as much. But a lot of times we talk about like the draw, like did they get, early, late or late, early, that kind of setup in terms of, how you're going to start this tournament. And sometimes the weather, as we know over there, can change quite dramatically where some guys that are playing early might play in calm conditions or play in terrible sideways rain, and then it can flip in the other way and they can get a huge advantage. So it looks like that's not going to necessarily play into factor this week at all. It's going to play super firm, super hard in terms of the firmness of the course, and we're going to see a lot of run out. And I think creativity is going to be interesting to see. What do these guys do on approach shots? Are they necessarily bringing the ball in high and actually going at these pins, or are they actually bringing it in front of the green on some of their approaches?
This is in Northwest England, and the last time the Open was there, Jordan Spieth won his last major, and I think it might have been -14 or -12, some score like that. So if it's going to be nice out, what's an Open championship without rain? But okay, if it's going to be like that.
You need one day, I feel like. I want a one day at like, 6 a.m., wake up and lie in bed and turn on the TV and then see it like somebody's umbrella is turned inside out. Like that's what I want to see.
I want to see some hats blow off. Yes.
Yes, I need one of those days for it to be a true Open experience. But yeah, you mentioned Spieth. I'm sure the highlights that people will be seeing this week, he, in that year that he won here at Birkdale, 2017, was when he had that epic hole where he hit it where no one even expected him to. It was like into the driving range, concession area, and they didn't even know if it was deemed to be out of bounds or not. They realized there was it was nothing was staked. They're like, well, it's not out of bounds. It took him over 22 minutes to play the hole, and he ended up somehow salvaging a bogey out of it. I mean, I'm sure they'll show the highlights over the course of the week here if he's at all in contention. And it was that hole where he makes the putt and yells, "Go get that!" And his caddy, Michael Greller, goes and it was an incredible bogey for him, considering how far he missed his tee shot. But this was the last time it was here. This is when Spieth was kind of in the discussion of is he the next, I don't know, was
Tiger.
it next Tiger, I guess, at that point? Right, yeah, because that 2015 through 2017 time period, Spieth was dominating more than any other player in golf.
With Brian Koziol, Bulldog, unable to join us, let's get to the picks here. It's my turn. I've been on a roll with these. You said it might be tougher because of the, the conditions maybe so nice. Maybe that opens up the field to many more players. I don't like how the odds fell for me, and I'm going to ask you, Brian, to break a tie. I checked on 3 different betting apps, is what we use to sort of tier these players. Top 3, you win half the amount, half a unit. Players ranked 4 through 20, you win 1 unit. Anybody ranked higher than 20, you win double. So I looked at 3 different apps, and they all have the 3rd and 4th favorites dead even in price. That's Fleetwood and Matt Fitzpatrick. So I'm going to ask you to decide which one goes in the half X group and which one is 1X. You pick.
All right. I'll put Fitzpatrick into the half payout because I think he's playing very, very, very well. Although Fleetwood, I feel like I could argue too, but I'll push Fitzpatrick into that top 3.
Very well. That's what I would have done too. So I'm taking both of them and Scheffler, who is the favorite. Won last year. Might seem like a long time ago since he's won one, but he won this tournament last year. I'll leave McIlroy off for the half price.
Yeah.
I don't like his attitude. We'll all be dead, so who cares? Not picking him. I'm going to take a McIlroy break. Schauffele. Sounds perfect for the track. Schauffele. The irons. I'll take him at 1X. Also, Rahm. Seems like you almost got to do that at that price.
Yeah.
I'll take McIntyre from Scotland. He had a good week at the Scottish Open, maybe third. And, close to home. I don't love that pick, but I'll do it. I don't love a lot of these. Feel like about the next 20 guys are kind of all the same here. So that's 6. Scheffler, Fitzpatrick at 0.5. Fleetwood, Schauffele, Rahm, McIntyre at 1X. I'll take Hovland, another sort of almost like a default pick in these things. What's his problem? Is it fair to say he has a problem? How close has he come to winning one? Is he to you a good pick?
Yeah, because he is talented enough that he's going to win one. I don't even know if I would label it as a problem. I would just label it as the fact that there's just a ton of good golfers, and his chances have also been in the middle of the Scotty Scheffler time period of dominance. So that's a little maybe blip there. I mean, he's finished second a couple of times, once at the Masters, once at the U.S. Open. So I don't think I'll say there's just more so other players maybe just have nipped him than it is going to necessarily say there's some sort of trend that he can't finish. So I like to pick. I would take him if I was picking the 10. He'd be one of mine.
Okay. I kind of like the idea of Wyndham Clark, the U.S. Open champion, but for apparently as locked in as he is, I'm going to not take him. I thought about it. I have 11 names written down. He's the one I'm crossing off. Scheffler, Fitzpatrick, Fleetwood, Schauffele, Rahm, McIntyre. Maybe you'll have time to comment on Clark if you want. Hovland. And then I've got Russell Henley, who I want. And he's just inside the top 20. And game theory-wise, I hate picking the guys that are 19th in this. Yeah. But I'm taking Henley anyway. And then 2 guys just outside would be Tom Kim and Joaquin Niemann. I love that Niemann had that. He had an 11 on a hole at the U.S. Open and still finished, top 10?
Yep.
So there it is. I'm not taking Clark. Should I take Clark? Would you?
Probably not. Just more so, and this is going to sound silly, but he's won a major already. Is he good enough to be a 2-time major winner in 1 year? I'm not ready to put that label on him yet. So
he's won two U.S. Opens, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to me, this week with, the storyline, there's Fleetwood, his hometown. He set the stories of him sneaking on this golf course when he was a little kid. Who's the best? When you said Hovland, I feel like that's the answer maybe, but who's the best current player that hasn't won a major? I think Hovland's in that discussion, and maybe Fleetwood's in that discussion, and both of them have a chance to maybe get that done this week.
I think Fleetwood would be that answer. I don't have a tail of the tape here, but remember at the end of last season, it was how he couldn't win these tournaments. He was close, and then he does win the playoff, right? He wins the Tour Championship. So, that guy's due, right? That guy's due. Okay.
And Rose made his amateur debut here and had the chip in on the last hole and had a great kind of start. That was his last tournament before he turned pro, and then we obviously know he's had an outstanding pro career. And maybe a week where again you don't have to hit it a mile. Not that he hits it short, but an older Rose who's smart, who knows the course, that also could be a nice story for this week too. For as good as he has been, money in the Ryder Cup, a gold medal, a U.S. Open, it feels like for him, if there's one event that I'm Justin Rose should have an Open, it just feels like that's right, and he doesn't have one yet. So maybe that could be something too this week.
Certainly could regret leaving him off. He's in a group where a lot of guys are like that. Morikawa, Oberg, Hatton, so Cameron Young.
Yeah.
Brian?
There's a ton of good picks out there. Even I'll go down the board a little more. Goddard up select. I don't even know if he's really down the board because he's won recently, but he played well. Last year won the Scottish, had a nice 2 weeks ago. I'm sorry, yeah, won the Scottish last week. I'm sorry, but then won the John Deere the week before that. So he's had some good play as of late.
Yeah.
He's played good in this tournament.
He's the 7th favorite. He's above all those guys we just talked about
So they
in
have
the
moved
odds.
him up quite a bit.
Yep.
So that's no longer an underdog pick for sure.
Plus 2,800 for Goddard, who I'm leaving off. Plus 75,000, last thing, for Padraig Harrington, who is dominating the senior tour, won an Open at that golf course. I'm not going to put him on my team, but I'm going to put $10 on him to win 7,500 if he does it. Is it completely insane to think that Harrington, who's I think my age, I mean he's got that going for him, could win this thing?
I kind of like it. You're talking me into it. I feel like I'm going to jump on with you on that.
All right,
That's
75,000.
Intriguing. Super likable guy too. Like, for those that are into guys that are media friendly guys and gives great quotes, he's the best on the tour probably in that sense. He's amazing with that. So, is he a 3-time major winner? I know he won the Open twice. Did he win a?
I think that's it.
PGA too?
No,
just 2 Open.
I'm not sure, but I'm guessing 2.
Yeah, he's got 2
British.
Opens. He went back to back for sure. Yeah,
yes.
two of those.
He's won the last 2 U.S. Senior Opens. One was like a month ago. Not even.
Yeah.
All right.
He's on a run that's kind of like we were talking about with Bernhard Langer on the senior tour
Yes.
for quite a while. Now Harrington's doing that.
Right. Or Hale Irwin before that. That's right.
Yep.
Okay, Brian, you free tomorrow?
Yeah, let's do it.
Same time.
Yeah, we'll check in same time, sure. And then obviously for those that want to watch early, I know a lot of big names are teeing off like in the 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. window. I think USA has the TV coverage at 4 a.m. for those that want to wake up early.
Okay. Thanks, Brian. Talk to you tomorrow.
Okay. Talk to you tomorrow.
Brian Koziel, Tee to Green. Saturday mornings. Scheffler, Matt Fitzpatrick, Fleetwood, Schauffele, Rahm, McIntyre, Hovland, Henley, Tom Kim, Neiman. I think I hate this team. I'm not coming in brimming with confidence. But you never know. I'm not sure confidence really correlates when it comes to predictions. I don't know who's going to win. Should I? We'll go with these are our guys. I stand by the boys. Time out here. Mike Schopp with you. Bulldog is off today. This is WGR. Sal would be likely to join me tomorrow. Brian again, and also Lord Reeves, Rich Rebar from Warren Sharp's website. I know Rich through fantasy football. I've met him a couple of times, and he does a lot of really good. It'll be a little bit akin to my guest today, Ryan Paganetti, but more on from a Bills perspective. Rich does team previews for Warren, and the last time I reached out to him, he said, why don't we wait until the book is out? And now it is, so we'll really dig deep on his analysis of what this Bills season could look like. That'll be tomorrow at 4. Started today talking about, well, different things, Joe Brady, and looking forward to the season, and just the coaching gauntlet that the Bills will run. Brady had better be on point in the coaching matchups here early in the season. DeMeco Ryans, week 1, I don't know where to put him, on a coaching ranking or anything like that, but they've had a lot of success. He deserves respect. Then we go Dan Campbell, Jim Harbaugh with Mike McDaniel, offensive coordinator, Mike Vrabel, and Sean McVay are the four head coaches the Bills face from weeks 2 through week 5. I mean, no easy path there. Then it's the Raiders. Then you get a bye week. Baltimore has a new coach. Minnesota. Look for me if you follow Matthew Collar and his Purple Insider podcast. I did one with him this morning talking Vikings and Bills. Matthew was pretty hyped for the Bills visit to Minnesota week 9, maybe 9 or 10 on a Monday night. And he said that might be like the marquee game on their schedule. I've been busy. Last night, ADP chasing, we had Matt Harmon for about an hour 40 last night, talking about mostly receivers and just trying to see what everything looks like around the NFL. And then also Theo Greminger and I did a podcast for RotoWire. That's where he is now, that I retweeted earlier today. Mostly fantasy, but it's football. Football talk is what it really is. Hockey talk with Paul Hamilton earlier today, talking about the early schedule news and more after this here on WGR.